is moksha mandatory? It depends what your goal is. Is it enough to just live a good life, doing a little bit of bhakti for God and doing some good deeds? Well, it depends what your goal is. It's like saying, do I have to drive a long distance, or is it okay to not drive a long distance? Well, it depends where you want to end up. I mean, if you want to go to Paris, you've got to drive a long distance or get on a flight. But if you only want to go to Haridwar, well, then you don't need to drive very far. In the same way, you need to ask yourself, what is my goal? There's no spiritual police that says, thou shalt crave moksha. What we do know is that ultimately the final highest destination experience of our soul, this Jiva Atma, is what we call moksha, liberation, meaning the drop becomes one with the ocean. That instead of being separate, I become one. I merge back into the divine from which I came, from which I was never separate. You don't want to do it this lifetime? No problem. The universe is infinitely patient. You don't want to do it next lifetime? No problem. The universe is infinitely patient. You get to keep coming back and doing as much as you want each lifetime. The question, of course, becomes why? Like, why would you unnecessarily take lots of extra time to go somewhere that you know is the destination anyway, if you could actually get there faster? But that's entirely up to you. We've been created with willpower, with free will, with buddhi, with the ability to be disciplined or not so disciplined, to choose whatever we want to choose, to do a little bhakti, to do a lot of bhakti. Actually, I could tell you, I'm not 100% sure what a little bhakti means. Meaning, either you love someone or you don't. I don't know if you can love a little. You may do few things for the loved one. I mean, there are people who shower their husbands or wives or children with lots of gifts and write poems for them and write songs for them. I mean, we all know those people who just are these sort of effusive beings of constant giving. Every 5 minutes they're saying, oh my God, I love you so much. And then we all know those people who love just as deeply. But maybe you've never actually heard them say, I love you. They love just as deeply, but maybe they don't show up every day with a gift or even every year with a gift. But you know it, you feel it. And it's just as good. When you really know someone deeply loves you, that's what matters. And God is the same. God is even more. I mean, as a human, we may still think, well, though, if he could bring a gift every once in a while, that would be nice. But with God, all God wants is that we should love. So you chant sometimes. You chant all the time. Okay. You do puja sometimes, you do puja a little, you do puja a lot. All right, either way. The main thing is that you love God. And if you don't love God, then all the puja and all the chanting, it's wonderful as vehicles, as paths to help you start to love God. But they're not a substitute for loving God. They're ways of catalyzing love of God in your hearts. We read scriptures, we chant God's name, we tell beautiful stories, not as substitutes for loving God, but as ways to trigger us to start to love God. And when you do, Puja Swamiji always says, when you love someone, you don't actually have to take a mala and go, Rekha, 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 Rekha. Like, you love Rekha. You don't need to be doing her jap mala. And so with God, the point is to really love God. You do a little puja or a lot of puja. I don't actually think God minds that much either way. I don't necessarily think either of them determines moksha. And the reason is that we've got sages and saints and mystics and enlightened beings of all different religions in the world, including some that don't do puja. And so if puja were a prerequisite for attaining enlightenment, that would be like saying that all of the prophets and seers of different religions actually hadn't attained enlightenment, which I don't believe. So moksha is the goal of your soul here in the body, ultimately returning to its oneness. What you choose to do in this lifetime to have that experience, to attain Jnan, wisdom, that leads to this moksha, that's up to you. But spirituality is not something that you want to be looking at kind of what's the bare minimum I need to do to skim by. You'll just come back next lifetime and do the rest. But also realize that it's not like a full-time job with a really long to-do list, that you have to stop everything else you're doing in order to get through all of these. I've got to do this much chanting, this much prayer, this much puja, this much this. Just love God deeply, fully. And if you don't have that deep bhakti yet, engage in a path of Jnan. Attain wisdom. Read scriptures. Discover the reason you're here, the truth of you. And slowly, slowly, Jnan will blossom. Bhakti will blossom. And through it all, recognize that every single moment, through your actions, through your karma, you actually have the opportunity to reach moksha. How to allow every action to be one that is in service of my awakening. Every action that is in service of loving God, of serving God. Every action in service of truth, in alignment with truth. So we've got all these different ways of how to live. But don't go looking for the shortest possible way. You've been given a very powerful gift in this human birth. Don't waste it. But don't take it like a big stressful burden either. It's a joy. It's a joy like wisdom is a joy, like love is a joy, like awakened action is joy. Take it like that. And then that moksha comes even while we're living. What we call jiva mukti. Because it's not freedom from the body, it's freedom in the body. And again, doesn't happen this life, no problem. You'll get to come back to this beautiful planet again, assuming we've done our part to take care of it.